music, baby. Welcome into Foxboro Rush. Travis Thomas here with the Khalin Kapoor. How are you doing, my friend?
Travis, I am doing amazing. It is great to be back to talk some ball with you. Let's get right into it.
Bro, I'm still hungover from the championship parade, so I'm gonna do the best I can here, Cullen, to get through everything because I had the time of my life, my friend. But that's another topic for another show that we'll get to. I want to start here because I actually haven't had a chance to get your take on this. I was on the record as saying this was too much money, and I felt it was a bit too premature. But I want to use this player to get into other players that are about to get paid at their position. Trevor Lawrence signed a 5-year, $275 million contract extension with the Jags with 200 M's guaranteed. So this deal makes Lawrence now tied with Joe Burrow as the highest paid player in NFL history. So I want to talk about some other quarterbacks who are due to get paid, and I just wanted to use that to transition into it. But I didn't get your take on the Trevor Lawrence deal. When you hear numbers like that, 5 years, 275, 200 guaranteed, do you feel the same way as I do that not even so much he's not worth the money, Cullen, because I get the quarterback market is what it is. Yeah. But I just thought if I'm the Jags, I'm letting them play out that last year of the deal. Now, it could cost me more in the long run, maybe, but I just don't think he's done enough to garner that type of cabbage. What do you say?
I think on the surface, you're absolutely right because he hasn't put together a full, actual good season yet. He's had the first half of the season a couple of years ago. The second half, he fell off. And remember the playoff game against the Chargers, right? All of these things kind of happened, and he was successful in that game. And then after that, things kind of fell apart in the regular season. The turnovers started to happen. Calvin Ridley was supposed to be the savior. That didn't happen for the offense as well. But I think what you just said, that if Trevor Lawrence plays out this year without a contract and he balls out, he's going to cost a whole heck of a lot more money for the Jaguars. And if he does poorly, then it's like, do we just pass up on our number one overall pick? Do we send him out and do we sign a veteran? Like, do we give up on Trevor Lawrence with a bad season here? So I think the Jaguars, in the spot they were put in with the market that the quarterback position is in now, where you're going to have to match or at least exceed the contract that was before you, I think the Jaguars did what they had to do with Trevor Lawrence. And when it comes down to it, that first year was the Urban Meyer year. I think we can all kind of, at the very least, put that a little bit lower in terms of how we evaluate Lawrence. Yeah. But in the building, in the Jaguars organization, if there was the belief in him that he can be their franchise quarterback, then I think that is when the money comes in. And if that belief wasn't there, you don't pay him. And since they did pay him, they are showing that they have the belief in him. Yep. Is it a misguided belief based on the stats? Potentially. But we'll see going forward this season if he's actually worth that money. And I think part of the reason is that now there will not be any kind of hanging narrative about the contract like there is with Dak Prescott, who we'll talk about in just a second. So all of those narratives get erased, and now the focus is 100% on this season.
Well, listen, you brought up Dak. He is in the group of quarterbacks we're going to talk about. I'm going to ask you about 3 of them, all due to get paid in the not-so-distant future. Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, and Jordan Love. Let's start with Dak since you went there. Now it's projected that he should get 4 years, $212 million. You and I both know these things can go left either way. It could be lower than we thought or higher than we thought. Again, just for reference, Trevor Lawrence, 5 years, $275, $200 guaranteed. What do you see for Dak here? What do you think of the 4-year, $212?
I think it's going to be maybe a little bit lower than that just because of the age consideration that Dak has and that Trevor Lawrence doesn't have. And we'll talk about Tua in just a second. But I do think overall, when you're comparing these two, Dak does have the body of work and the consistency that Trevor Lawrence doesn't have. Maybe he doesn't have the upside like a guy like Lawrence has just because of that age factor and the fact that Lawrence is coming off, maybe a little bit of a down year and there's expectations for even more growth this season. So I do think the years are going to be lower than Trevor Lawrence. You mentioned the 4. I think it'll probably be that. The AAV might be a little bit lower, though, with Trevor Lawrence matching the highest paid contract in the quarterback position. I think Dak is interesting, though, because of the body of work that he's shown. We talked about it in our last episode of Foxboro Rush, Travis, that he still has some things to prove. does Dak, and that is getting to the playoffs and winning playoff games. So is he worth that huge contract? The stats say yes, but the playoff acumen doesn't really get him there just yet.
Yeah, hey, AAV, by the way, Trevor Lawrence will be at 55. In this, if Dak were to sign this, he'd be at 53. So to your point, a little bit lower there. Look, I don't even know how to word this without being confusing. So I don't think Dak is going to get paid from the Cowboys in this price range. I think he'll walk. But I don't think the Dolphins are going to pay Tua in this price range. I believe the Dolphins are going to pay Dak what he wants in this price range. Did you stay with me there?
I'm with you. Yeah.
Could you see that? Because think about this, Cullen, and we'll get to Tua here in a second. But look, like I think you and I can agree, at least some of what Tua is doing, at least some of it, Cullen, is systematic. It's, he's got an offensive coach there. They have weapons. It's clearly the system. Not to say Tua's no good, but if you're Miami, this is an undersized quarterback with a history of injuries. We can go get a veteran guy for the same price, maybe a little bit more. He's proven he can win. He just hasn't proven he can win on the biggest stage. You put these great weapons around a Dak, I think it kind of works. And I think Tua maybe has to go somewhere else to get paid. So does Dak, but I think Dak goes to Miami. What say you to that?
That's a really interesting one. And I think you mentioned the system, and it's the pre-snap motion. It's the throws within 3 seconds of the ball being snapped. That kind of thing can be replicated with a different quarterback. And that's nothing against Tua. He's in that system and he thrives in that system. And that is a credit to him. But also, to be fair, it's a credit to Mike McDaniel for building it and for getting Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill to be a part of it. And every single time those guys move around before the snap, they give themselves an extra 3 yards of separation. And that's a deep ball touchdown for Tua. And if you got a guy like Dak who can hit the deep ball, we saw that with CeeDee Lamb and we've seen it with Amari Cooper and Mike Gallup in the past, that could work. I do think for Tua, the injury considerations is one of the biggest factors here because any contract is going to have some kind of clause, some kind of this that's like, hey, if he doesn't play a set amount of games, we can either have an opt-out or we can have something to get the team a little bit more or less liability in that contract with an injury-prone quarterback. Tua did play a full season last year, but the concussion issue is one that if you take a hard hit, that could be 3 games right there. That could be a half of a season right there with the way that concussions are and the way that multiple concussions are on the human body. So I think that I didn't even think about, the concept of the Dolphins going away from Tua because that system is just Tua. That's just kind of how it is in my brain. But I think that system is really Mike McDaniel because that's who built it. And that's who has really, really honed it into the well-oiled machine that it is. I think Dak would be a good fit. Honestly, any quarterback who's got some zip in his arm and that can hit a deep ball would be a good fit in that system. So it's just it comes down to will the Cowboys pay Dak Prescott and will the Dolphins pay Tua?
Bro, I'm jotting these down now. This is just AFC. Just teams that I think will spend big money on quarterbacks in the not-so-distant future. Miami, we both sound like we agree there. Dallas, I guess this is an AFC because Dallas. Vegas comes to mind. They have cap space. They need a quarterback. They got to quit messing around. Pittsburgh, I mean, you nor I really feel like Russell Wilson or Justin Fields is going to work there long term, right? Right now, I don't know. Are there any other teams off the top of your head long term? Maybe the Saints. They'll have to make a decision on Derek Carr, right?
And I think the Saints actually is kind of a good example of what could happen if a team like the Jaguars passes on Trevor Lawrence. I'm not saying the Saints had a Trevor Lawrence, but it's the kind of thing where you have to spend big money on a veteran that may not work out if you get rid of your franchise quarterback. It's kind of a tangent. But Carr hasn't really worked out in New Orleans. He just hasn't. And that's the kind of situation where you kind of locked yourself into that contract. Will it be Derek Carr for this year or next year? And will he be the mediocre quarterback that he was this year or last year, this year? Like, that's the kind of thing. So I could see them going out and buying another big contract. But
maybe
that kind of will feel like deja vu if it's another Derek Carr archetype quarterback like that has been moderately successful in his NFL career that comes to a new team and just doesn't move the needle as much as what would have been expected of him.
Cullen, that's such a great point that I actually think the next team I'm going to name could be in the same boat, which is the Giants, right? Like they may look at it as like buyers beware. We shouldn't have gave Daniel Jones that money. Now, I believe that Daniel Jones deal they're able to still have some flexibility with, but still you paid a crappy quarterback, you overpaid him, and that's what the Saints and the Giants did. So let's do this. Instead of wording it as these are teams that could pay big money for quarterbacks potentially, let's just open it as potential quarterback openings that we see right now. Miami, Dallas, Vegas, Pittsburgh, Saints, and Giants. All right, so Dak could end up in any one of those places, including Dallas. I still think they move off of him. I would put Dak in Miami. Before we move off of him, we like the money. We sound like we're in lockstep. 4 years, 212. Okay, no problem. Do you think he stays in Dallas, or do you think Dak moves on like I do?
I think he stays in Dallas, and I think that is going to come from a successful season this year. Okay. I do think if it's another situation where they make the playoffs and they lose in a flame-out fashion, there's going to be the conversation on social media or in the media at large, like Dak just isn't the guy. Statistically speaking, he has been just fantastic in the past couple of years. And he's also playing in a division where there are openings for victories. We talked about New York. Washington's going to be fine. I don't think they're going to be amazing. And in Philadelphia, those teams are going to match up pretty well. So Dak has a chance this year. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago that this is a prove-it year for him, even though he has some great experience and body of work. If he can prove it, I think he stays long-term for Dallas. If not, maybe there's a change. But I do think Dallas is in a spot here where they can get Dak long-term, and he's going to want to stick around for the stability aspect of things and also just that he's been there his entire career, right? And if it does come to pass that Miami offers him a lot of money, it would be tough to say no to that if you're Dak, right? With that system and with the offensive firepower that's on that team. So it is worth monitoring as the season goes on. I do think overall that Dak has a successful year this year in Dallas and he does get locked up.
Brother, I'll be honest with you. If I was Dak, I'd take less money to go to Miami because you actually have a chance to win there. By the way, I'm going to add one more team to our list. So I told you Miami, Dallas, Vegas, Pittsburgh, Saints, Giants. I'm going to add the Seahawks too. That's another one. I mean, you got to think about, their quarterback situation, and they have cap space. They're going to be thinking about that. All right, let's get to Tua. Now, we both agree he's a system quarterback. Doesn't mean he won't get paid either by Miami or elsewhere. I told you, I don't think Miami pays him. You believe Dak will get paid by Dallas. Do you believe Miami will pay Tua? Here's his projected contract. Very similar. Little bit less than Dak. 4 years, 210. So this is big money for Tua Tagovailoa. He's going to get it from somewhere, Cullen. It's just a matter of where. I do not believe it's Miami. If I'm Miami, I told you. I'm looking at Dak. I'm looking at a veteran who is really, I feel, an upgrade over Tua, even though probably slightly. I do think Dak is better, but I don't think it's, apples and oranges here. It's more durable, bigger, stronger arm. If I were Miami, I'd be willing to pay Dak that kind of cabbage. I would not be willing to pay Tua. Do you believe he stays in Miami, or do you believe he goes somewhere else? And how do you feel about that projected 4-year 210?
I think when Tua was asked about the contract situation, what he said was the market is the market. Right. And now that market got a whole lot higher, and he has the power right now to be like, hey, if you don't pay me as much as Trevor Lawrence got paid or as much as whatever, Joe Burrow, Jared Goff got paid, then I'm not accepting anything. And this entire season kind of is going to be in flux where will he hold out of training camp? Will he hold out of, some OTAs or whatever it is? So that is interesting. I do think that Miami, with the success they've had with Tua, with the fact that he is a really good fit for this system, it fits him like a glove. The only issue I see is with the injuries. I do think there's a way to structure a contract with him that the injuries are less of a liability on the team. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record. I'm saying that guys are going to stay with their teams, but I think Tua's going to stay with Miami just because of the way that he's succeeded in this system. But I do think that the way that Tua has been vocal about his contract, how he wants to get something done, if something isn't matching what he wants, there is an opportunity there to hold out. And that's not, the optimal situation for the team and for either party involved, honestly. So that'll be something to monitor as well. I do think overall this system works really, really well with Tua. Mike McDaniel seems to love him. They have a great coach to quarterback relationship, and that's a big part of it as well. So I see Miami extending and I think that it's a good fit for both teams if that does happen. The money is the interesting part here. Will they have to jump up and match the Lawrence contract?
I wouldn't. There's no shot I'd do that. I wouldn't be me if I didn't gamble here a little bit. I already told you I think Dak ends up in Miami, so I guess I have to put Tua somewhere too. He's not going to Dallas. They're not going to not pay Dak and then pay Tua a little bit less. I could see Dallas maybe resetting the quarterback market and maybe drafting a kid. Vegas, Tua doesn't fit there. Pittsburgh, I don't know if they'd spend the money. And the last time he was with a defensive coach, it didn't go well. Saints, it doesn't feel like New Orleans. Doesn't feel like New York to me. Seattle feels like a good fit for Tua, right? It's sort of an isolated part of the country. I'm sure he would still get paid there. Kind of feels Russell Wilson-esque in terms of like personality. Russell Wilson had a great deal of success there. I bet you Tua, I could see Tua in Seattle, and I could see Seattle paying him. And listen, 4 years, 212 is too rich for my blood, but he's going to get that. I don't have any problem with that projection at all. I would not pay it, but someone's going to pay him. And, I could see Tua in Seattle having a pretty good deal of success. Think of this, Cullen. NFC, a little bit easier than the AFC. Not as many great quarterbacks there, so not quite the gauntlet you have to go through in Miami. Yeah, I'll go Tua to Seattle for 4 years, 212. Now, here's one where I look at things your way. Jordan Love is not going anywhere. Here's his projection, and I actually think he'll get more of this. Now we can have a conversation about Trevor Lawrence money potentially. Right now, Jordan Love is projected to get 4 years, $212 million. I think he's going to get more than that, Cullen, when it's time. I could see Green Bay just breaking the bank for him. Obviously, we're both assuming he's going to come in this year and at least, Cullen, be as good as he was last year. You can't see any regression here from Jordan Love. That could be red flag city. But if you don't get that, let's say he levels up or at the very least kind of remains a status quo, right? Has the same type of year. I think now you're going to get in the Trevor Lawrence range more so. I think that could be a 5-year, 275 type deal. I think the Packers will move heaven and earth to keep Jordan Love. You say what?
Yeah, we're in lockstep on this one. I saw the projected contract, and I was like, 4 years honestly seems a little bit short for me. Like, with the Packers, they're no stranger for having the highest paid quarterback with Aaron Rodgers over the past few years when he was with the team. And I think also getting a long-term deal and structuring it in a way where they can manage the cap hit in the first few years so they can go sign some weapons for Jordan Love and build around him a little bit more than they did last season. And I think this is a no-brainer for multiple reasons, the first of which being the Packers love having their starting quarterback. It was Rodgers, it was Favre, go back in time to the Packers. They've always had their guy, and they don't want to have the flux that a bad team without a sure thing in the quarterback position is never as successful as a team that has a sure thing. That's just a fact across the NFL. And the Packers want their guy. I think Love is their guy. What we saw from him last year was really, really impressive, especially considering who his wide receivers, who his weapons were. He had a great backfield with Aaron Jones. Now that's a little bit different. Aaron Jones is off the team now, but A.J. Dillon is still there. So I think Jordan Love needs to get locked up. I think it's going to happen, and I think this 4-2-12 deal is going to be longer and more money because I think that's what Love deserves. And I think that is what the Packers are willing to shell out for their star franchise quarterback.
Same. I think that'll be closer to the Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow zip code. By the way, you know who's going to be watching that contract very closely are two guys that come to mind. I'm sure there's more youngsters, but I'm thinking Brock Purdy, and I'm thinking C.J. Stroud too, Cullen.
Yep.
Just
C.J. Stroud came to mind for me.
Right? Like stud, young dudes still on their rookie deal that have already, let's call it what it is, they've already outperformed these deals, right? But you got to wait your turn. You got to be patient. And in the meantime, it isn't a lose-lose. Like, sure, you're not getting the money that you deserve. But, Cullen, because you're not getting the money, the franchise is able to build, if you're a part of a good franchise, they're able to build around you, because they have more resources. They have more money to spend. So right now, if you're C.J. Stroud and Brock Purdy, try to go win a Super Bowl, man, because, by the time it comes to you getting paid, you're not going to have those same resources that you have right now. But I can imagine both Stroud and Purdy are going to be watching that Jordan Love deal very closely. It sounds like you agree.
They definitely will be. And as we so often say, the next contract is going to at least exceed the previous contract when it comes to the superstar quarterbacks and resetting the market. On the Niners side with Brock Purdy, very interested to see what happens there, just because in a Kyle Shanahan offense, that Brock Purdy archetype quarterback, anyone kind of could be successful, right? And that's nothing against Brock Purdy. He did flash in the playoffs what he was able to do with his legs and with the way of extending plays. But the way that he operates is not necessarily a way that can't be replicated with a different quarterback. Will he be worth an AAV that's beyond Trevor Lawrence? We don't know yet. He's won a whole heck of a lot of games. That much is for sure. On the Stroud side, I think absolutely he's gonna get a record-setting contract. There's no question about it in my mind. I don't see a sophomore slump in his future. I think he's going to have another great season. He's got Stephon Diggs with him, and when it comes time for him to get the bag, he is for sure going to get that bag. I don't think that is even a question here.
For more from Cullen and I, check out Boston has entered the chat. I'll tell you what it was like to be at the Celtics parade. I'm still recovering from that, and we'll preview Stanley Cup Finals Game 7. How about that, Cullen? All right, let's talk some rookie QBs now. We have so much QB on the brain here. Let's get to the rooks. Now, these guys aren't going to get super paid anytime soon, Cullen. We know they are smack dab starting their rookie contracts, but we can talk about their projections in terms of yards. So let's start with the number one pick, Caleb Williams. 3,500 yards, 3,532 yards for him, rookie year in Chicago. I'm going over here, Cullen. This guy has weapons falling out of his pockets. I mean, already, bro, think about this for a second. This is how insane this is. He goes to the Chicago Bears, an NFL franchise, right? I think he has more weapons in Chicago than he did at USC. He has a better offensive line in Chicago than he did at USC. The only difference is he's taking a pay cut to go to the Bears. He was making more money at SC than Chicago. But other than that, I actually think he's going to be better than he was in college. I think he's going to put up better numbers because he has better pieces around him. I'll go over that.
Yeah, this number is way too low for me. I think he's going to crush this one. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be close. Like, maybe 3,800 is the minimum I'd put for a line at Caleb Williams. I see him going up to the 4,000, maybe 4,100 mark, even in his rookie season. And we've talked about how good of a fit he could be in this offense. And it comes down to the intelligence in the pocket and the fact that if he doesn't have a shot downfield with DJ Moore, he can either go medium field with Rome Odunze or, the short field slot receiver and Keenan Allen. There's so many opportunities here for this offense to beat any team that they face. And we've talked about this, Travis, that this Bears team is probably going to be faced with a lot of shootouts this year. There's probably going to be a lot of games where they have to score 24 or more, 30 or more points, and the offense is built to do that. And with that comes a lot of passing yards, will come a lot of passing touchdowns for Caleb Williams. He will chip in on the rushing side as well. He'll scramble when he needs to. But when it comes down to it, I think Williams is going to average, over 260 yards per game. He's going to hit 300 a bunch of times this year. And that number at 35, 32 is just way too low for me. I don't understand where that one came from, given the system he's walking into. I have to imagine part of it is just that rookie QB just bumping it down a little bit. You know, any other QB in that system that's established for a few years is probably going to be projected in the 4,000s or the 3,800s. So the rookie QB aspect does bump it down. Maybe it takes him a few games to get acclimated. I don't know if it will. I think Williams is going to start off hot from day one with Chicago. And he's going to put together a really great rookie season.
I agree with you. These are ESPN projections, so what the hell do they know anyways? All right, J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy, same, 3,500, 3,527 yards. Listen, I'm not a J.J. McCarthy guy, and here's the deal. Like, I'm not a hater per se, Colin. I just feel
I don't know about that.
I don't think I am, and here's why. It's just too unknown. I don't know what he is because he wasn't asked at Michigan to do much. There were a few games that Harbaugh put the pressure on him to drop back there and throw, but that's a small sample size. For the most part, he was kind of asked what Brock Purdy is being asked to do. Like, just manage this game. Don't lose it. We have a stellar defense, stellar offensive line. 3 or 4 all-world running backs. Harbaugh is a great college coach. I just think, like, I get all the hype around J.J. McCarthy. By the way, Cullen, I love college football. He had hype coming into college football. He had hype from high school. So he's always been this blue chip. Everyone believes in him. Dude, I just haven't seen him put, like, a team on his back or a program on his back and carry them. With that being said, this is why I know I'm not a hater. I'll go over here on this number because he has Justin bleeping Jefferson. Just throw him the ball, Cullen. He has Jordan Addison. He has other pieces here. I'll go over for McCarthy, even though I'm not sold on him being some next great quarterback or some savior. Does that make sense?
It does. I think this line is actually set in a really good spot for J.J. McCarthy. I don't think he's going to go out there and toss 300-yard game after 300-yard game because that's just not who he was in college. And that's just not what the Vikings offense, I don't think, is going to be this year. They brought in Aaron Jones. I think there's going to be a lot of rushing involved in this offense. But you mentioned the Justin Jefferson effect, and that's the true game-breaking effect that this offense is going to have. If it comes down to it, will J.J. McCarthy air out the ball with Justin Jefferson on the X spot? Yes, he has to, because it is the best wide receiver in the NFL. So overall, I think this line is good. I could see it going a hair under, maybe at the 3,400 range for J.J. McCarthy. I still think he has a relatively successful rookie season. I could see him winning 8+ games in Minnesota.
Wow.
Potentially. But I do think that the stats will not be over the moon, right? That we just talked about with Caleb Williams. They're just two different quarterbacks and in two different systems, right? So that's where I kind of stand on McCarthy. He's shown that he can win football games, and that's really important. When he comes to the NFL, I think that learning curve is going to be a little bit longer than it is for Caleb Williams.
Sure.
I understand the narrative was that he is an NFL-ready quarterback right off the jump, but I think it's going to take him a game or two to get there. I could see him finishing at the 3,400 to 3,500 mark, just a hair under this line.
What about Jayden Daniels there in Washington? All the reports so far have been rave reviews about him. He's at 3,400 yards, 3,457. You know, you got to think with him, too. He's dual threat, so a lot of this stuff, he's going to be moving. I don't know much about their offensive line. I feel like he could be running for his life instead of running to pick up yardage. But I'll go over here with Jayden Daniels. All the reports are he's a stud. They have weapons there. Maybe there's some competent coaching there now. We'll see. I know Kingsbury's there calling plays, Cliff Kingsbury. I'll go over for Jayden Daniels, but it's just purely on optimism here.
Yeah, I think the Commanders' offensive line, a lot of changes here. Sam Cosmi sticking around for them. He's going to be the anchor, but they brought in a couple of new pieces. When it comes to Jayden Daniels, I think the key thing is how many of those total yards are going to be rushing, how many of those are going to be passing. I do think overall with the offense that we saw that was a little bit iffy or a bit iffy with Sam Howell. Terry McLaurin still got his. Dotson still got his. So the wide receivers there are solid. It's one of the better tandems in this NFC East. Obviously not better than the Eagles, but, you know, they're great. So that doesn't really matter. But I think overall, Daniels, I could see going over this one. I think just based on pure speculation, based on the dual threat ability, maybe he goes like 3,300 through the air, chips in 500-600 on the ground, something like that. And totals maybe get up to 4,000. But with the rushing and the passing, I do think this offense is going to be a little bit better than people anticipate with Jayden Daniels and with the offensive line. The running game should still be strong. I think with Austin Eckler back there. So I think things are going to be a little bit better than anticipated. And I think Daniels is going to be a really strong quarterback year one as well.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, if he gets all purpose up there in that 4,000 range, that offense is going to be a lot better. I would agree with that. All right, now ESPN projects 15 games for Drake Maye here. So this is why these numbers are a little bit higher. Drake Maye, 3,378 yards. Now, if he gets to that, he damn sure played in a lot of games because I don't necessarily see him. I'll go under here because I think he's going to play half of the year. I think that first half of the year, I could see Jacoby Brissett really carrying it until the Patriots are a little bit out of contention. Then you turn to Drake Maye. And I just don't think he'll see these type of numbers in half of the year. But if ESPN is right and he plays 15, then I'm okay with these numbers. I just don't see him playing that many games. What do you say?
Yeah, Travis, we were talking right before we recorded. I think Brissett's getting at least 6 games to start off this year.
I
at
think
least.
So.
And he can go even more than that. It could be the full bench year for Drake Maye, full developmental year for the rookie quarterback. I would prefer that doesn't happen.
Me too.
I think the key thing for Maye is that when the team feels like he's ready, they put him in. And if that happens on week 12, that happens in week 12. That happens on week 4, it happens in week 4. Then we kind of see where things go from there. The 15-game projection, I just think is ludicrous. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett's going to be the starting quarterback for the first month of play in my mind, at least. And then, I said 6 weeks as well. So this number, the 3,300 is solid if he does play this amount of games with the offense that the Patriots have and the rookie wide receivers with the rookie quarterback. Really get up there in terms of games played? I don't think so at all. If we're talking next year, I think the projection is going to be a lot higher because Maye took the time and sat down behind Jacoby Brissett this season. For the Patriots, I think the best case scenario, this is obviously Foxboro Rush. We can talk a little bit Patriots for a second. I think the best case scenario here is that he spends the amount of time he needs on the bench in the backup role, getting reps in practice, learning from a true mentor like Jacoby Brissett, and then he comes out there and jumps into the starting role because he's prepared for it. And it's not a Bryce Young situation that we saw last year with Carolina, that he gets thrown to the wolves with a bad O-line and gets, shoved down multiple times. I think with Jacoby Brissett, with this Patriots offense developing with Drake Maye, this is the best case scenario. We've talked about it before. I think this line, too long didn't read, is a lot higher than it should be, given the fact that I think Maye, if he plays, I think he plays half or less than half of this season.
Bro, other than Caleb Williams and hammering the over for that, this is my favorite one. Bo Nix, 3,165 yards. I'm going over. I think Bo Nix is being slept on right now. He's going to be your starter from day one. I think he works perfectly with Sean Payton. I think he's going to have an excellent rookie season. The only thing is he'll be overshadowed by Caleb. But I do believe Bo Nix is the quarterback of the right now for the Denver Broncos. He's ready to go. I felt this way about Michael Penix. That's why I hate that he ended up where he is in Atlanta. But I think Bo Nix is ready to play right now. I'm going over here, Cullen.
Yeah, the key thing you mentioned was Sean Payton. I think he's going to bring the most out of Bo Nix that he possibly can. I'm not saying this Denver team's going to be exceptionally great at all, but I think Bo Nix can be a solid rookie quarterback. I don't think he's going to look lost out there. And this line is really, really shallow. I mean, 31-65 shouldn't be too hard for a starting NFL quarterback to get, especially one with the skill set of Bo Nix, with the wide receivers that he has there and the weapons he has there in Denver. But the key thing is Sean Payton, right? What could he get out of Bo Nix? Will this Broncos team win 10 games? Absolutely not. I don't think so. Will they be able to be a successful team with a rookie quarterback? That's the big caveat. Successful with the rookie quarterback? I think so. And I think Bo Nix with this line should be able to get to that 3,400 mark relatively easily with some upside for some bigger numbers down the line.
All right, let's go. Let's do the rookie wide receivers here. Let's go with Marvin Harrison Jr., 1,121 yards with Arizona. I'm going over here. Listen, him and Kyler are going to be a problem. I would not be shocked, Cullen, and we see this all the time in the NFL, where teams go from terrible to a playoff team in that next year. I think I'm going to be on the Cardinals this year to be that kind of team. I could see them. They had a great draft. They had more draft picks than any other team in the league. I think the Cardinals turn it around, and they clearly have proven that they will play for that coach there. They don't quit on him. I'm going over for Marvin Harrison Jr. here. I think he has a big rookie year.
Yeah, I think 1,300 plus for Marvin Harrison Jr. That's bold, but I think who else? I mean, who else is Kyler going to be throwing to on the outside? Who else has the skill set that Marvin Harrison Jr. possesses on the outside? And rookie wide receivers are so different than rookie quarterbacks, right? We talked about Jefferson in his rookie year. He showed out. And so many other wide receivers, you can look down the line and see that. And so I think that overall, Harrison Jr. is going to have a lot easier of a path with a great quarterback behind him in Kyler Murray, who's shown that he can hit deep balls, extend plays, find receivers when they're open. And this Cardinals team, to your point, I think is going to be a little bit better, a lot of it better this season. So overall, I really like this line because I think he's going to smash it. I think Harrison Jr. is going to show why he was picked as high as he was, why a wide receiver was picked as high as he was, and he's going to be really great this year. I'm really excited to see what Harrison Jr. brings.
All right, we know this kid talks a big game. Malik Neighbors for the Giants, just a tinge over 1,000 yards, 1,033 yards. I will go over here, even though, the quarterback situation there in New York is ass. But I still think this kid he's so gifted, Cullen. I think he'll find a way, and he's a game breaker type. Like, if you get the ball in his hands, he could shake on you, boogie, make something happen. I'll go over for Malik Neighbors, but they need to get him a competent quarterback there in New York.
Yeah, I'm going under. I just don't think Daniel Jones can sustain a 1,000-yard receiver. I don't think it's possible with the way that the offense has gone over the past couple of years. If Jones is healthy and he comes out there, he starts slinging the ball around, maybe. But 1,000 yards with Daniel Jones as a quarterback is a tough sell for me. I'm going to go under. Maybe he hits up to 800 if he stays healthy the whole year. But overall, I just don't think this Giants team is going to be good enough to sustain a good, high-quality wide receiver. Neighbors has the talent. He's got the skill set like you talked about. Yeah. But I don't think Jones is going to sustain 1,000 yards.
All right, let's go to another LSU wide receiver, Brian Thomas Jr., 814 yards with Jacksonville. I'll go over here, Cullen, because Jacksonville's wide receivers suck. So I look at this, and I'm like, hey, good for Trevor Lawrence. He should be able to key in on this guy and get him the rock. I'll go over here.
Yep, I like this one too. Without Calvin Ridley in the mix for Jacksonville, they need a big alpha wide receiver on the team, and I think this guy's going to be able to get it. I do think overall, with the way that this offense looks, Brian Thomas Jr. should be able to catapult himself in his rookie season with Trevor Lawrence. And now we talked about the contract situation. Now that that's out of the way, we can kind of focus on the football aspect of it all. Thomas Jr. profiles to be a really strong wide receiver. On the outside, he works on the inside as well. So all of those signs point to him being great this year. Maybe it's not, a 1,000-yard season in his first year, but he's going to work up to being a good wide receiver in the NFL.
Absolutely. Sure. Keon Coleman, 810 yards with Buffalo. For the same reason, I'm rolling with Thomas in Jacksonville. I'll roll with Keon Coleman here. I mean, who the hell else is Josh Allen going to throw to? He doesn't have anyone left. I'll go over for Keon Coleman, and you know what? His personality tells me he'll probably be a star in this league too.
Yeah, as long as he gets more press conferences, I'll be happy. I mean, absolutely. And I think for Coleman, you mentioned the loss of Diggs, Gabe Davis. Who's Josh Allen going to throw the ball to if not for Keon Coleman this season? And that's what it comes down to. I still think this Bills offense is going to be successful because of Josh Allen. He just throws the ball as far as he can every single play. If Coleman's down there for a couple of those big catches, he's going to get to this number. 810 is not the highest number in the world for a rookie wide receiver. I think he can get up to 950 on a high-flying Bills offense. I still think they're going to be a good offense, maybe more subdued without Stephon Diggs, but the offense is still going to be successful in my mind.
All right, now, you already said you think Caleb Williams is going to put up video game numbers with Chicago, as do I. So I imagine Rome Odunze you're going over 803 yards for, right?
Absolutely. And I think when the things kind of break down in terms of who gets the most in this wide receiver core, I think it's going to go DJ Moore, then it's going to go Rome Odunze, and then it's going to go Keenan Allen. I think Allen gets the most receptions, but I think Odunze and Moore beat him in terms of yards. They're going to be in the X and the Y spots here, with Keenan Allen focusing in the slot role. And Williams and Odunze, they've shown to have a great relationship already off the field, and I think it's going to be shown that they can get that on the field as well. And DJ Moore is going to get his. I think he goes above 1,100 to maybe even 1,200 yards this year. Can Odunze get up to 1,000? Maybe. I think he probably goes 900 or so in his rookie season. This offense is going to be so fun to watch. And Keenan Allen probably gets, in my mind, maybe 750, 800-ish yards, and Odunze beats that in the 900 range.
All right, now we only have 5 minutes left, so I want to go rapid fire for our season predictions. And here's the thing. It's only June, so you and I will do this 1,000 more times until we get to the season. Yep. So let's do our first one here. We'll go rapid fire. Team with the best regular season record. Who are you rolling with? I'm going to roll with the Dolphins, Cullen, only because I believe in Tua within the system. I liked what I saw from them in the regular season last year. I think this year they'll be the 1 seed in the AFC. I'm going with the Dolphins. Who are you going with?
You're going to disagree with me on this one, Travis. I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers. Okay. This is probably the last ride with this core on defense, especially, and with these wide receivers and Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey just got paid. Brock Purdy has shown he can win games in this league. I think the Niners run it back here and have another fantastic year.
Team with the worst record. I'm going to go Panthers again, but I do think they're moving in the right direction. I don't think they're a wasteland. I just think they have more work to do. But I like the direction they're heading in, but they're headed for another tough season. What say you?
I think the Panthers are going to be bad. I think the Raiders are going to fall even farther this year. Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell is not the most inspiring quarterback room. Devontae Adams is going to get even more disillusioned with the process over there in Vegas. I don't think they have a good season.
All right, team to win the AFC Championship. I'm going Chiefs only because I've been burned twice. First I went Ravens. They didn't get it done. Then last season I went Bengals. Joe Burrow gets hurt. It's just been a mess. I'm tired of betting against the Chiefs. I don't think they win the Super Bowl again, but I'll take them to win the AFC. Who you taking?
I'm doing the Undertaker meme, and I'm going with Cincinnati. I think they get back in the mix when Joe Burrow comes back from injury. You mentioned you picked him last year. Yeah. They were great when he was on the field. He got injured and things didn't go well. I think he's going to be fully healthy. He's got his full complement of wide receivers. Yeah. This Bengals team is going to be the team to beat this season.
He's the only guy to stand toe-to-toe with Mahomes and beat him. All right,
exactly.
Team to win the NFC. I'm going Lions. I believe in them. They should have been in the Super Bowl last year, quite frankly. I'm going to go Lions here to put everything together, get back to the Super Bowl, and win it.
I got a dark horse pick here. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to make it all the way again this season. After the down year last year, the coaching staff was in flux. They brought in a couple of new head coaches, or I should say coordinators, OC Kellen Moore coming in. He's shown he can be successful. And then Saquon Barkley, if he puts together a healthy season with Jalen Hurts, this offense is going to be unstoppable with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. It's going to come down to the quarterback position. If Jalen Hurts can be consistent, this Eagles team is going to be incredible in the NFC.
All right, if you're keeping score at home, Cullen has Eagles, Bengals, Super Bowl. I have Chiefs, Lions, Super Bowl, and thought it could have been that last year. I'm going to go Lions here to win the Super Bowl and finally make Detroit happy and make Detroit a winner. I just like the way they've built it the right way. They seem like they're right there. I'll go Lions to win the whole thing.
Finally make Detroit happy is a hilarious phrase. But yes, I love the pick. I think the Lions deserve it. I think the Bengals are going to get it. They're going to make it back, and they're finally going to finish the job after losing to Matthew Stafford and the Rams in their last appearance. Joe Burrow deserves this. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL since coming in a couple of years ago. I think he is going to have that bounce back season off of injury for the ages, and he's going to lead his team to a Super Bowl.
I made that comparison where I look at Patrick Mahomes as a new Tom Brady, as most of us do look at him in that way. And then I'm looking at Joe Burrow to be Peyton Manning, which means
I was thinking the same thing.
We've already seen him beat Mahomes in some big spots and almost beat him in a couple others. but he's got to get a ring, to your point. You got to get a ring or two if you're going to be considered the Manning in this era. There's no doubt about that, my friend. I agree with you on that one, Khalin. Hey, for all of our best content of the day, make sure you follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. We're everywhere, baby. Get with us. Hey, Foxboro Rush, another one in the books. It feels great. Travis Thomas, Khalin Kapoor. Thank you so much, as always, for rolling with us here on Foxboro Rush. What a rush. Till next time, peace.